you come into companies of all shapes and sizes. Let's talk about companies, let's say, in the $5 to $50 million space, right? So not a startup, but not a much larger company. You or somebody on your team, because you have a pretty sizable team right now. You or somebody else on your team comes into one of these companies. What are most companies missing out on right now when it comes to the financial function not being where it needs to be?
Oh boy. Again, at its simplest, it's probably about what is the insight they need to have to make the decisions that they have to, if you're really boiling it down. Yeah. Because when we find very often, we'll give you another fun example that really highlights that, and exactly what you're referring to. This company in their monthly meeting that they review their financials, they review this 4-page P&L on a monthly basis. And after 3 months of one of the CFOs of my team sitting in that meeting, he basically said, enough, does this tell you anything? You're sitting here looking at this 4-page P&L. Does this tell you anything about running your business? No. So let's figure out what it is we do need to know so we can make the decisions we have to, whether you pull out KPIs or dashboards or boiling it down to whatever metric you're comfortable with or terminology you're comfortable with. But it's getting really clear on what is the insight you need to make the decisions that you have to. And you need to understand both. What are the decisions you need to make? And therefore, what's the insight you need to make those decisions? But that's what your finance and accounting function is supposed to provide. It's not just did we close the books? Of course you need to close the books. Your data needs to be accurate, it needs to be all over there. It's more what you do with that information and guiding you moving forward. If those are the goals that you've set for the organization, how are you taking all of this data and insight and information that you have and guiding those decisions as you move forward?
Gotcha. And then while certainly not as interesting as exciting, what would you say are a lot of companies in that space, are a lot of companies missing a lot of the checks and balances and processes and procedures, to avoid theft and because I can't tell you how many people I know that share the password to their bank info, with their controller or bookkeeper, and all of a sudden a couple $100,000 is missing. I mean, how often
there are some real horror stories in that space. Some really sad ones that we've seen, some ones where we found it, an actual proof of it, and frankly, the business owner didn't want to know because the business owner didn't want to deal with it. Which I get that betrayal is very tough for the business owner to face around those. But the proper controls becomes a very big issue and common ones, because the things that work when you were 3 people in a basement don't work when you're 30 people or 50 people or 100 people in a whole office in a warehouse type of thing. And you have to change how you manage the company as you continue to move forward. So as I jokingly put it, a lot of what we do is helping organizations grow up, because as business owners and founders, universally, they are really, really good at delivering a product or a service. And as the company grows and scales and they now need to run a business, that doesn't necessarily translate the same way. So what we very often advise many of the business owners is, okay, where is your highest, best value to the organization? Where should you be spending your time? Because the pieces that then you can take off around all of those things become great. Take those pieces off, because the return on your time to your company is much higher around these things, and that's where you should be focusing your time. And so managing the controller and looking at all these different little pieces, that's not where you can or should be spending your time. You're not an accountant. You're not a finance person by nature. Very few business owners are. Bring in that expert who can help do it, whether it's us, whether it's a CFO, whatever title, whatever resource you need. Bring in that help around those pieces to put those correct controls in place. Because, yes, while embezzlement or theft is far more common than people realize, that's not usually the universal issue that we get brought in on. It's more about the lack of insight as they continue to grow and scale the company. And part of the necessary pieces to build that function correctly are the right controls in place.
Yeah.